I had been getting interested in doing movies of our family travels and different events, and this project came out of an inspiration I had one evening when I was sitting, as I normally do, visiting Dad. On this occasion, I think we were looking at some photos. He had a whole suitcase full of photos that when I opened it up, I was really amazed. It seemed like there were hundreds of these little black and white photos in there that most of which looked like they were from his days in the military or even earlier than that. And so being curious and realizing that all this material was there, I started to see, well, what all is there that I haven't yet discovered about my dad? And I felt like I was getting bits and pieces, but that there was a larger story that seemed like it was ready to be told. Ralph Joseph, trombonist, playing with the big bands. I can recall sitting in a Chinese restaurant with Martha, and with this realization that we had this amazing body of material, the photographs, all these recordings on tape, on vinyl, on digital recording, already digitized recordings. The whole first part of the process of creating this film was just capturing all that and into a digital form that I was able to work with. So just a lot of scanning, a lot of cropping photos, a lot of working with the sound and so forth. But it came to a point, and I remember sitting in this Chinese restaurant where we're thinking, well, what is the arc of the story? What is the real narrative here? I knew it was a story that needed to be told, and there were all these great anecdotes, but there had to be an overall theme. So obviously, the subject being following the musical career, because you have several decades and you have all the different stages that this person, Ralph Joseph, my father, went through, from high school through the military, through his days at Juilliard, through his touring with the big bands. The idea of this being part of a common thread, well, and then the realization came to me, it's about the music. The music is really the continuity that flows through all that. Even though the music itself evolves, it is the gift of the musician. It's what the musician brings into into each event and into history, really. This was really about music, the musical soundtrack of the arc of history, if you will, as told through the perspective of the musician. And so that idea is the one that guided me. I realized it was a tall order, and I was blessed, and I was also challenged, because I was blessed with having a collaborator, my dad, someone that I would be in dialogue with. I was also doubly blessed to have so much support in the family and amongst friends, and I realized that this is a story that really can best be told through involvement and collaboration with all the people that are closest to the main subject, which is my father, Ralph Joseph, that can be part of producing this movie. It was personal in that way. And that's also where the challenge came, because it was so personal that I knew I really wanted to get it right. This was a labor of love. And yet, I thought, if not now, when? And if I didn't do it, who would at this point? So So with that idea in mind, I just realized this is how I'm going to spend my fall of 2019, going into 2020, and I'm glad I did it. The whole journey has been just an amazing opportunity to kind of pause, to reflect, and for myself to follow that journey through immersion in the material, in the music, in the narrative, and I learned a lot along the way. The experience of rolling it out and being able to share the movie amongst an audience where about half of the people in the audience were participants in the creation of the work was also really amazing. This project has been a collaboration, and that's what has made it so special for me. It's been an opportunity to work closely with my dad to learn about aspects of his story that I thought I knew that story, but in the course of going in depth and walking through all the different events for purposes of putting together this movie, I was able to learn a lot more about this person that raised me, and that's been a wonderful takeaway for me. And just basic aspects of that collaboration, like consulting with him, asking his opinion on a selection that I might like and think might be appropriate for a certain scene in the movie, and he gave me a lot of latitude. He just kind of let me go with it, and I really appreciated that. But it was nice to also have him as a sounding board every step of the way. A good example of that is the Tex Beneke piece on Chattanooga Choo Choo, which he recorded. It was actually a rare recording, and I remember we searched all around the house to find it. He finally found it buried under a stack next to his desk, and so we were able to work that in. There have been many recordings of that original Glenn Miller piece, the piece that Tex Beneke really had as a vehicle where he made a name for himself in Sun Valley Serenade in that Hollywood production. But it was the version that he later recorded on the Orange label with my dad being part of the band that is the part that's precious to me. And so just aspects like that, wherever there was a recording that had my dad on trombone, I would use that. And in other pieces where we didn't have a recording available, but we knew these were the pieces that he played. Most of the Flanagan pieces were ones that he was actually part of the recording, because he was with Flanagan during that stage where they made most of their body of work that was pressed onto vinyl, and for that reason, and in addition for the reason that I personally found the Flanagan pieces to be most uplifting, and I really enjoyed learning the names of all these pieces. Yeah, so one of the things that I really enjoyed in the process of creating this movie is that I had the opportunity to do a little research into the emergence of big band music and how it became popular, and what that meant in the context of the war years and then the post-war years and so on into the more recent times, the 50s, the 60s. One of the things I discovered was that I really found the music relatable. I started out thinking, well, here's these 78 albums that it's kind of interesting, it has that old-timey sound to it, but then as I started going through this huge body of work from all these amazing arrangers, these amazing band leaders, I knew they were popular. I didn't realize just how popular they were at the time, because you don't often hear about the big band era other than maybe as a footnote. There's a lot of many histories that have been done about jazz, the history of jazz, some on the early days of swing, and certain of the main, most popular swing bands and composers such as Duke Ellington and Benny Goodman, obviously. But then when you get into that era beyond the early days, the late 1930s, you get into the war years. And then beyond the war years, where music continued to evolve, and yet the connection between the big bands and that era and the sentimentality of that era, the social environment of that era, where the thing to do would be to go out to dance, whether it was the Lindy Hop or other types of ballroom dancing. But this was a time when music really came alive and became popular to a broader audience. For me, music continues to be a mystery in many ways. There's something about it that's just primal. It's really at the essence of how we experience life. And as I've asked myself this question, over the years, one thing that really stands out to me is how music is so tied in with memory at multiple levels. From the very basic level, where just to follow a melody, what makes that melody coherent is that short-term memory of even a few seconds ago, the lingering essence of a note that is played, creating an interval of meaning. But then at an even deeper level, music's ability to bring back memories or to associate with the experiences of our lives, collective experiences, and those that are most poignant, most personal. Most people, myself included, can, when we think about different events in our lives, oftentimes, whether was actually there at the time, but in some way, if music was involved, hearing that music will bring back that memory right into the present moment. The same way that I guess poetry and good storytelling will, but even more so, because music has that power to activate parts of ourselves, our emotions, and just kind of wrap around the whole experience in ways that nothing in language alone can do. Music has a language of it. It speaks to us in its own language. And one thing that my dad said, which I think makes the point better than I could, is that you can't describe music. You have to listen to it, and you have to experience music. You can talk around it. You can describe it in a sense, but you can't fully describe music in words. So really, our ability to experience music and to benefit from having music as part of our lives is unlimited. The only real limitation is the one that's internal. Our readiness, our willingness to be open to the music, to let our imagination go where it will, and become immersed in the music, in the context. And I found that to be the case in becoming immersed in all this music of the big band era, because at the outset, what started as music that seemed old-timey, that seemed like something off the shelf, that that harkens back to a different time that's maybe remote from my own experience. The more I got into it, the more emotionally I got involved with that music, and really feeling connected to what it must have been like to the people who were hearing it live for the first time. So that's the real story, is an invitation to to be open to music of a different era, realizing that era is maybe not as remote as may first appear, and that there's actually a lot more that connects us across time than we realize, and that music, in a sense, is a portal to being able to access not only the memory of that time as might be written in a history book, but also the feel of what it was like to be in different times in history. So this project also was about the romance of the, it's entitled "The Romance of the Hornplayer." There was a very important part of the story, which is the circumstance where the reason that I'm here, the reason my brothers and my daughters, my whole family are here, is because of this really unlikely moment in history where an actress was invited to be a singer in a band that was forming, both in their hometowns. And so I really wanted to learn a little bit more about that story of how Ralph Joseph and Norma Leonza came together and became ultimately my parents. And so I thought, well, at a minimum, we need to just hear their accounts of what attracted them to each other, and also, the attraction that comes from two artists, two people involved in the fine arts, being able to appreciate each other, and then also just the that happily ever after ending, which we know, life is complicated. We know that was really just the beginning of a whole other story of being young parents, and there was 50 years plus of now 60 plus years of professional careers as a married couple and while raising a family. And so this is just one little piece, the very start of a whole other story. So I'd like to take this opportunity, Mom, Dad, to just express my deep gratitude for the opportunity to share in the journey, and to do it in a way that is not as much a tribute. I mean, you can view it that way, but it's really the opportunity that this has given me to be a vehicle for you to tell your own story. And in that sense, it's more of an autobiographical story, told in your own words, told with your own, mostly with pictures that you yourself took, recording the journey along the way. And yet, what a honor, what a privilege it's been to be able to work with you in weaving it together as a story that in some small way and in some small measure captures just the beauty and richness that you have both brought into the world through a life of artistic achievement. To be able to say that this has been, in part, my experience growing up, being the son of such creative parents is a great honor for me, and you know, and so I hope that in some small way this is a way of saying thank you. I love you.